guys, we are back with a Mystery Monday video. Today's video is the mysterious disappearance of the Sodder children. It is a BuzzFeed video and we are going to hop right into it right now. My baby got off of work, she's a little sleepy, so we're gonna watch this and then we are going to head to bed. Right now it is still Monday for us. This video might come out on a Tuesday, but we're filming it on a Monday, so I'm still gonna go ahead and call it Mystery Monday. Hopefully we can get it uploaded before the end of the day. It's 10:30 right now, so we'll see how that works out. All right, let's get into the video.
This week on BuzzFeed Unsolved, we cover the mysterious disappearance of the Sodder children. You look enthralled. You look really excited.
I can't wait.
I think you're about to have your mind blown.
We'll see.
Okay, cool. Let's get into it. The year was 1945, on the night before Christmas in Fayetteville, West Virginia. George and Jenny Sodder, along with 9 of their children, were asleep when a fire started in the house at around 1 a.m. George, Jenny, and 4 of their children escaped: Sylvia, Marion, John, and George Jr. The children that remained in the house were Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty, and the 5 of them shared 2 bedrooms between them, both rooms upstairs. George broke back into the house to save the rest of the children, but the staircase was on fire. When he went outside to retrieve his ladder, it was missing from its normal spot, and both of his coal trucks, which he wanted to use to park outside and climb on top of, were strangely not starting.
Don't park your coal truck by a fire. That's a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine there was coal in the truck at the time.
Okay.
I'm sure it was emptied of coal.
Well, I don't know. It's a coal truck.
He just climbs on top of a pile of coal.
It's all just covered in flammable coal, jumping into a house. Bad idea.
Marion, one of the children who escaped the fire, ran to the neighbor's house to call the fire department, but the operator didn't respond, and when a different neighbor attempted to call, she also got no response from the operator. That same neighbor actually drove to town and found the fire chief, F.J. Morris, in person. But even though the fire department was only located 2.5 miles away from the home, the firefighters bizarrely didn't reach the Sodder house until 8 a.m., 7 hours after the fire began. And by the time they arrived, the house was literally ash.
Time to reevaluate.
8 a.m., 7 hours after the fire began. And by the time they arrived, the house was literally ash.
Time to reevaluate your staff there.
That's nuts. 7 hours to go
hours.
2.5 miles.
At that point, just don't show up.
You could literally walk there faster than that. How long would it take you to walk 2.5 miles?
It's like about 20 minutes to walk 1 mile. So
Like in an hour.
If that. That's a slow walk.
Today, I ran a mile in like 12 minutes and I wasn't even really like going super fast. Most of the time I was jogging. So like, what is that?
That's insane.
That's, wow.
You really see where your tax money's going there.
That's not like, oh boy, we really dropped the ball on that one. That's like firefighters from Florida could have driven out there in
In
time.
their defense, it was Christmas Eve.
Oh, it's
What
fine.
is that?
So like,
Christmas
they
Eve.
tried
More
calling.
fires on Christmas.
Evaluate your staff there.
You really see where your tax money's going there.
That's not like, oh boy, we really dropped the ball on that one. That's like firefighters from Florida could have driven up there in time.
In their defense, it was Christmas Eve.
Oh, it's fine if people die
So
on
like,
Christmas
they
Eve.
tried calling. I'm not saying I'm condoning them for being 7 hours late to a fire that was 2.5 miles away.
It's just not great.
In fact, I'm pretty sure I could run that in probably about an hour at least.
I could spit the fire out
I
in
could
that
probably
time.
chug a
I
beer
could just
and run
spit on the fire.
Authorities scavenged the ashes of the fire looking for the remains of the 5 missing Sodder children, but nothing was found, and they were presumed dead due to the fire. The fire chief, F.J. Morris, suggested that the fire may have been so hot that it completely cremated the children's bodies, including their bones. While that theory sounds reasonable, it is not entirely accurate, because when flesh is burned away, bones are still typically left behind, likely in fragmented form. Additionally, there was no smell of burning flesh reported during or after the fire. The cause of the fire was deemed to be bad wiring in the house, and in the week after, the Fayetteville Coroner's Office issued death certificates for the 5 Sodder children. The basement of the house still remained, and George would later use a bulldozer to cover it up with 5 feet of dirt to create a memorial to his children. Soon after the fire, George and Jenny began to suspect their children were not dead, but instead kidnapped, believing the fire was deliberately set as a diversion and not the result of faulty wiring. In fact, George had actually had the wiring in his house checked earlier that fall by the power company, which had deemed the wiring in safe working order.
Who said the wiring was faulty?
Sometimes people aren't the best at their job when inspecting stuff. Case in point, at my job, we had a plumber come out, mind you, a professional plumber. He came out to check our toilets because one of them kept messing up, like it wouldn't flush or whatever. He came out to check it, said he fixed it, said everything looked great. The very next day, it broke again.
Or even like with our AC here, we have professionals, like people that do this for a living. The company come fix our AC like 5 times, and
like
it would
literally
break
the
again.
company that made the AC like came and checked it out and said it looked fine, and then it broke again. To the point where they just like completely took out that whole unit and put in another AC unit because they couldn't figure out what was wrong. So like, just because a professional came to look at it doesn't necessarily mean that it couldn't have, like something couldn't have short circuited or something like that. Especially a month ago, like a lot can change in a month.
Especially in the fall, I feel like the weather conditions, you know.
Yeah. So I wouldn't completely rule out like an electrical fire just because someone came and checked, like an electrician came and checked it. Maybe that electrician just sucks at his job. But it definitely does make it more suspect. But I wouldn't completely rule it out. Also, I did want to say one other thing, but I forgot. What was it? Oh, 5 children. Also, talking about the 5 children, like, you're gonna tell me there was no bones, 0 bones left over from 5 kids?
That's about 1,000 bones, a little more, like, and none of them.
There goes the nursing student. But no, seriously, like, you're gonna tell me there's not a single bone from the kids left over? One, not even one?
At least a tooth.
When
like,
people get cremated like all the time and they're like their bones are always left over.
There's chunks of bone left over after cremation.
So like what are you like, that sounds so stupid to me. Like just that alone is like definitely would lead me to believe that the kids were not in the house when the fire even started or
snatched during the fire.
Yeah, somehow. But yeah, that's just me. Like I already, like, telling you straight up, I don't think the kids were in this house when
they didn't die in this house.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think they died in this house. Like, there would be some evidence of it, some bones, something. And if they didn't find any bones, like, I don't think there's any way that they died in there.
Like, I wouldn't believe Bubba died in a fire if I didn't see a Bubba skull.
It actually had
Oh, sorry.
Just saying, we'd look for him.
Somebody in the coroner's office. You'll see why they may have done this later, but
okay.
anyways. But before we dig into the theory that the children were kidnapped, let's discuss George's personal history to provide some context.
Ooh.
George Sauter had immigrated from Italy, and Fayetteville, where the Sauters lived, had a small but engaged Italian immigrant community, a community that George was very vocal in, especially about his disdain for Mussolini, sparking a few heated debates in the community. George also reportedly never revealed why he left Italy, leading some to speculate that he may have been involved in some shady business in Italy. Many believe that either of these reasons may have led to the kidnapping of George's children. Let's examine some curious occurrences that support a possible kidnapping. In the fall, just before the house fire, a life insurance salesman came to the house, and when he saw that his sale wasn't going to be successful, he became infuriated, yelling at George, quote, "Your goddamn house is going up in smoke, and your children are going to be destroyed. You're going to be paid for the dirty remarks you have been making about Mussolini," end quote.
right, I think we've solved it. All right, well, it's been fun. See you later. I will set this house on fire, and your children are going to die. Huh, who could it be? Who could have done this?
Seems a little on the nose for me. He just listed every single aspect of the case in nice, easy, laid out fashion.
House on fire, kids are gonna go up and yeah.
It was like the third act of a student film when they had to wrap everything up in exposition and dialogue.
Yeah. And this, oh shit, it's due tomorrow.
In the days leading up to the fire, 2 of the surviving Sodder sons witnessed a man watching the younger Sodder children come home from school on Highway 21. Another suspicious occurrence happened that night. On the night of the fire at around 12:30 a.m., the phone rang, and Jenny got out of bed to answer. This would result in an important observation. Jenny noticed the lights were still on downstairs. As she started to fall back asleep, she heard a loud bang on the roof, followed by the sound of something rolling, and an hour later, she woke to the smell of smoke entering her room downstairs. The detail that is interesting is the fact that the lights were still on. If the fire had been caused by faulty wiring, as had been suggested, then that meant there wouldn't have been power to the house, meaning that the lights shouldn't have been working. But Jenny saw that they were on about an hour before the smoke. And later, the Sodders would claim that they saw the lights on while the fire was occurring as well. Additionally, a witness to the fire claimed that they saw a man removing a block and tackle typically used for removing engines from cars, perhaps explaining why both of George's trucks weren't working that night.
Did they, as their post-mortem, did they look in the cars to see if there were engines in them? No. Huh.
No. Okay. I mean, I don't think he removed the engines completely because it's not like he could waddle away with really heavy engines. I think maybe he just tampered with it, just pull a couple wires here and there.
Okay.
This is all a possibility.
It sure is.
Just presenting the case.
Hey, all right.
When the family visited.
A couple things I want to say about that. One, if he had the whole thing to pull out engines, why would he pull out the whole engine, tamper with a couple wires, and
then
put it back? Or why would he have that in the first place out there? If he wasn't gonna take out the engines, but also taking out the engines is such a stupid way to mess up somebody's car.
You could just slash tires.
Well, I mean, he just didn't want them. If anything, it would be because he didn't want it to turn on. So, just take the battery or something. You don't have to take the whole engine.
Just cut a few wires. That's it.
Yeah. So, I think that's weird. I think probably people were just letting their imagination get away from them. Also, the lights being on. I'm not an electrician, but I think... What?
I'm not an electrician.
I'm not an electrician, but I will say, just because the lights are on, I don't think that means that there couldn't have been something faulty. Especially I know for a fact some wires in houses
They don't even
go to a certain place and only to that place. The wires in our apartment connect to things that are only in our apartment, not in the apartment next door. So on the first floor of a building, if the lights are on, you can't assume that the outlet upstairs is gonna work. So, I mean, all it would take really to start a house fire is one bad outlet or one bad faulty wire connecting to that one outlet or something like that.
Literally a spark.
Yeah, so just because the lights were on, I don't necessarily think that automatically means that there was nothing wrong with the wires. But there is more evidence stacking up against that wire theory, so yeah. But anyway, just wanted to go ahead and put that out there. Also, who as a threat just randomly thinks, hey, your house is gonna burn on fire and your kids are gonna die? I feel like that's a weird
thing to say.
Yeah, that's a weird thing to say unless you mean it, I think. It's so weirdly specific.
Yeah, it could be something even just the house on fire. Okay, I get it, because it was an insurance person. But the kids dying, that part was just over the edge.
I mean, it was a life insurance person though.
Oh, then the house.
He was
really
doing like
doesn't make
life.
sense.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he was doing like life insurance. He wasn't doing like home insurance. So like,
It's just weird.
if it was life insurance, he like I feel like a better threat would be like
You're all gonna die someday.
no, like, oh, you're gonna like, oh, you're gonna die and your family's gonna have nothing or something like that. But then also tacking on the like Mussolini thing at the end, it kind of sounded like the life
Targeted.
insurance guy was like, yeah, like knew that he wanted to like go after that guy or something. Like maybe he just used his job as a cover to get close to him and
Get some
like,
intel.
tell him like, yo, I'm gonna fucking kill you because you've been talking shit about Mussolini.
Mamuzi.
But yeah, anyway, we have a lot left in this video and it's already been 15 minutes in our video. So
There's 10 minutes left in this one.
we're gonna go ahead and just watch the rest of this and then we'll talk about the theories and stuff after the rest of this video.
After the fire, when the family visited the memorial George had set up, Sylvia found a hard rubber object in the yard, an object that Jenny believed may have caused the loud bang that woke her that night. But even more interesting was the fact that after further inspection from George, he believed the object was a napalm pineapple bomb, similar to those used in the war at the time.
I mean, it sounds like someone set the house on fire.
Yeah, it clearly does. I think we have enough here to say,
Yeah.
someone probably set the house on fire. Probably wasn't faulty wiring. With all these strange occurrences and not believing that the fire could have burned her children's bones to ash, Jenny began to experiment by burning different types of animal bones, all of which left remains. She spoke to a crematorium employee who told her that in cremation, bones were left behind even after bodies burned at 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 hours, and the solder home only burned for about 45 minutes. Also noteworthy is the fact that remains of household appliances were found in the rubble, meaning not everything was ash. So clearly, there should have been bones left.
Should have been bones.
There have also been reported sightings of the children. One occurred that night while the fire was still burning. A woman claimed to see the children in a car that drove by while the fire was still raging. 50 miles west of Fayetteville, a woman who operated a tourist stop told police that she saw the children the morning after the fire. Quote, "I served them breakfast. There was a car with Florida license plates at the tourist court too." End quote.
Nice of her.
Yeah. At a
Giving them breakfast.
yeah, I mean, she's just,
It's nice to have breakfast.
okay, well, yeah, I agree. Breakfast is nice. I enjoy bacon.
Agree to agree.
What are we doing here? At a hotel in nearby Charleston, a woman reported seeing 4 of the 5 children about a week after the fire. Here's her statement to the police. Quote, "The children were accompanied by 2 women and 2 men, all of Italian extraction. I do not remember the exact date. I tried to talk to the children in a friendly manner, but the man appeared hostile and refused to allow me to talk to these children. I sensed that I was being frozen out, and so I said nothing more. They left early the next morning." A few years later, George saw a photo of New York City school children in a newspaper, and one of the kids looked like his missing daughter, Betty. George drove all the way to New York to investigate, but once he tracked down the child's parents, they declined to speak with him. In 1947, 2 years after the fire, George and Jenny attempted to involve the FBI, who offered to help, but in a curious turn of events, the Fayetteville police and fire departments both denied their offer. What do you gain in denying to help the FBI? All you have to do is give a couple interviews, maybe? Like, what?
There's a lot of paperwork.
How busy is this fire department?
They're probably not that busy, but that's probably how they like it.
I think there's some shady shit going on there, but that's just my opinion. George and Jenny turned to a private investigator named C.C. Tinsley.
Yeah. CC Tinsley's here.
That does sound
What you say? No bones, huh? Sounds like a case for
So they-
CC Tinsley.
Apparently they got an investigator from a time machine. They dropped him back in a time machine.
1945, of
That's
course
not
he
how
said.
they did not
Oh,
speak
yeah.
like that. That's not how they spoke. in
Yes, that's how they
1945.
spoke.
One suspicious revelation occurred when Tinsley discovered that a member of the coroner's jury who decided the Sodder house fire was an accident was the same life insurance salesman who had threatened George.
Fire was an accident was the same life insurance salesman who had threatened George earlier.
Are you kidding me?
Who put together this jury? The coroner?
Okay, a couple quick things. What? That's so stupid. Like how? Like this must. Where did this take place? This must be like a super shitty small town. Like honestly,
This is
like
definitely a shitty small town.
like how did they get to find this guy who threatened him and his family to put him on a jury of like deciding how it happened, like what actually happened. Like what? That doesn't make any sense.
Earlier in the fall.
Who put together this jury? The coroner? We're putting together a jury to investigate this crime. Can you wrangle up all the maybe some lunatic salesmen?
By the way, is there no police officer that knows how crime works? Like, how did they not interview this life salesman man? Like,
I don't know. Look, I'm telling you, nobody knows how to do their job in this town.
it's unbelievable. Like, so you're telling me he screamed in your face that he's gonna murder your family?
Interesting.
Sounds like a good dude to me. I don't know what you're talking about.
Let's put him on that jury.
Another interesting find occurred when Tinsley interviewed townspeople about the fire. Tinsley heard a rumor from the town minister that the fire chief had been telling people that he'd actually found a heart in the ashes of the Sauter home, and that he'd hidden it in a dynamite box and buried it where the home once stood.
Why does the minister tell rumors?
Tinsley persuaded the fire chief to show him where it was buried, but once dug up, the heart was actually beef liver and had never been in a fire.
Oh, darn it, I accidentally... That's my darn sandwich. No wonder that sandwich tasted so bad the other day. I mixed them up.
Why the hell the chief did this was apparently to provide some closure to the Sauter family. I guess you could say it's a heartfelt gesture.
Ryan?
Oh,
no.
shit.
No,
man.
no.
See you guys later.
Nope, sit down.
In August 1949, the Sauters hired a pathologist named Oscar B. Hunter, who excavated the dirt that covered the Sauter basement and the remains of the house. He found 4 shards of human vertebrae and sent this to the Smithsonian for analysis. They hypothesized that the bones were from a 16 to 17-year-old person. However, the oldest missing Sauter child was a 14-year-old boy, making it improbable that the bones belonged to him. They also stated that there was no evidence that the bones had been exposed to fire, and that the bones likely originated from the dirt George Sauter used to fill the basement, rather than the remains of the house. This was before DNA investigation had come into play, and according to the Smithsonian, the bones were given back to George Sauter, but their current whereabouts remains a mystery.
What did he do with them? Just
Exactly, no one knows. Huge tragedy that we can't DNA analyze those bones to see if they belong to the Sauter children.
Yeah.
After the Smithsonian revealed their findings, West Virginia Governor Oki L. Patterson called a hearing in the state capitol building in Charleston, West Virginia, where he officially declared the Sauter case to be closed, telling George and Jenny that their search was, quote, hopeless, end quote. This led to George and Jenny setting up a billboard on Route 16 advertising their missing children, where it remained for nearly 40 years.
40 years? They're tenacious.
I mean, to be fair, if it was my kids, I wouldn't stop. And
Yeah, I guess if 5 of your kids have vanished.
Oh, and also a salesman screamed in my face, "I'm gonna burn your house down and murder your family."
Yeah.
Then yeah, I think I would probably keep searching. The billboard kept the story alive and mentioned details such as the children being kidnapped, the fact that the faulty wiring did not cause the fire, the fact that there was no bones or residue found, and lastly, accused the law officers involved of a cover-up. Quote, "What was the motive of the law officers involved? What did they have to gain by making us suffer all these years of injustice? Why did they lie and force us to accept those lies?" End quote. People around town had various theories. Some believed the mafia had been involved. Others believed the children were now in Italy or that they had been sold to an orphanage. The family received a letter from a woman in St. Louis saying that the oldest missing daughter, Martha, was in a convent there in St. Louis. Someone in Florida also said the missing children were living with Jenny's distant relative. And the ever-diligent George Sauter investigated all these tips, but each came up empty. Another hopeful tip came in 1968, 23 years after the fire, in the form of a photograph sent to Jenny specifically addressed to her, not the family. There was no return address on the letter, but it was postmarked in Kentucky. The photo was a man in his mid-20s. George and Jenny believed this could be their son Louis, who was 9 at the time of the fire. The man in the picture had the same dark brown eyes, dark curly hair, strong straight nose, and upwardly tilting left eyebrow. On the back, it had a handwritten note, quote, "Louis Sauter, I love brother Frankie, Lil Boys, A90132 or 35, end quote. They hired a private detective to go to Kentucky and find him, but strangely, the detective was never heard from again.
I think that's the first time I've ever heard of a detective going missing. That's like a fish drowning.
And you know what's strange about this on the internet, nobody seems to really care about this point.
When a detective goes missing, you've got some pretty powerful adversaries. I'd say it's time to quit the game.
Some on the internet have theorized the detective took the money and ran, but nobody knows what happened to him for sure.
I don't think the detective would have taken the money and run though, because if you're a private eye, unless it was if it was enough to survive for the rest of his life.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, why would he? Yeah, that's.
He's probably built up a nice client base. He's got to throw his Rolodex.
It's not like that. Like they gave him $1 million. Right, it was probably like 5,000. That's what the
enough
poster
for a few
said.
sandwiches.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, those are some big sandwiches. But yeah,
hey.
point taken. George Sauter passed away shortly after in 1969 at the age of 74, and Jenny Sauter passed away in 1989 at the age of 85. Sylvia, who was 2 at the time, is the last remaining Sauter child alive. She maintains that her siblings did not die in the fire that night. Jenny Henthorne, Sylvia's daughter, told the Times West Virginian to post any information on websleuths.com. Quote, "My mom promised my grandmother that she would never let the story die. That's what my brother and I are doing now." End quote. After all these years, the question still remains. What really happened to the Sauter children that one fateful night? Was this truly the result of a tragic house fire? Or were the children actually kidnapped? Hopefully, for the sake of the remaining family, all of these questions will be answered. But for now, the case remains unsolved.
That there was some foul play in it.
Something's going on.
That's weird.
So sketchy.
The back of the picture that was sent to the last Sauter child, was it, what did it say on the back? I love brother Frankie?
I love brother something, little boys, and then some numbers. It's kind of just didn't make any sense.
Maybe it was someone telling her.
A90132.
It says I love brother Frankie. Maybe it was someone telling her that like they have her brother, but now the brother goes by Frankie.
Frankie. Little boys. What?
Also, he read that as A90132 or 35, but maybe it's just A90132 OR35, and they just spaced it out weird for some reason.
The whole note was just.
It is weird. Everything's weird about this case. It could also just be someone fucking with her, like, and that's a really shitty thing to do, but there are shitty people out there.
I don't think they died in the fire, and
I would love to check the bones, because like how old was the boy? He was like 14, so they said the Smithsonian said 16 to 17.
could
Like,
have been a large boy.
Yeah, he could have
Or
just.
they could have been off by a few years.
Yeah, they could have definitely been off by a couple years.
Especially because science wasn't so high tech.
14, 15, 16, literally 2 years off. Like, how much can your bones really change from 14 to 16? Like, I know you get bigger, but like.
It also depends on the kid. Some people don't have like a big growth spurt until they're like 17, 18. You could have
And I also don't know like how they would determine that. I don't know if there's like, I don't know, like more bone marrow or something. I don't know how bones work when you get older, but like a 2-year gap like that I think that definitely could have been the bones of.
If they would have said like a 30-year-old or a 2-year-old, it's different.
Yeah, the bones of the boy, but like even if it was the bones of the boy, that's just one kid.
Yeah,
Like,
it's like, all right,
the
one died.
other four, like it's still hard to say that they died in the fire and you
And
found no
completely,
bones,
like,
no bones at all.
yeah. This one's just sketchy.
It is really weird. I definitely don't think that they died in the fire. I guess I would put my money on the super fucking sketchy life insurance guy,
Literally saying he would burn his house and kill his children.
Yeah, I think that's where I would put my money. Let me know what you guys think down in the
Your comments below.
Yes. Sorry, I'm still not good at this YouTube thing.
And I'm sleepy.
All right. On that note, we're going to bed. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Till next time, peace out. Stay safe. Keep each other safe. Bye.